So yeah, my name's Andy Corbett, and I'm from DigiLab. I'm the director of AI there. I also work at the Alan Turing Institute as a scientific advisor. Today, I'm here to talk to you about uncertainty. Uncertainty comes in many forms. You have uncertainties when you collect data. Have you collected it in the right place? And how does this affect models? There's uncertainties in how we make assumptions around our models. Have we chosen the right parameters? Have we chosen the right structure and scaffolding for our digital twins? Is a more exciting slide. And there are uncertainties in making observations. For instance, you have stochastic processes, and you need to differentiate between these things. There was quite a lot of uncertainty on the Jubilee line this morning, but I'm going to save that for maybe a coffee afterwards. And of course, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty around AI, around how we deploy AI, how we trust the models, and how we can trust their predictions in particular. So these are things that we're focused on here at DigiLab. And if there were three things, well, actually, before we get here, I just want to pause for a moment and ask you all to think about maybe your systems. Think about models that you deploy, or a particular one, and where are the uncertainties in that for you? Is it in data? Have you made the right choices about your model? And then I wanted to ask you, how do you handle that? How do you deal with that uncertainty? What sort of models? Well, rather than in 8 minutes, I'll just give you a potential answer. I suppose one thing you can do is, if you've got a predictive model, sample, wiggle the inputs a little bit, and build up a distribution. That's a perfectly reasonable way to quantify uncertainty, but it's expensive. And in particular, it's hard to audit where those uncertainties come from. So at DigiLab, we think about uncertainty in terms of probabilistic machine learning. Machine learning models that model distributions themselves natively, rather than having to understand sort of a wiggling parameter problem. And if there are three key take-homes I'd like you to take from today, is that uncertainty quantification isn't a bolt-on, it's not an extra. It should be fundamental to how we build models so that we can trust and audit them. And it is an investment. You get things back from building probabilistic models. And the three things are, number one, you can build efficient surrogate models, cheaper approximations to expensive simulations, which you can trust because they have quantified uncertainty, and you can audit them. You can split out those different types of uncertainty. You can include expert information into the model. So here, we're talking about building models based on observations that you make as a human, and then slowly transitioning them into data-driven ones, updating them as you find out more information about the specific system. And finally, and maybe most importantly, but when you have sparse data environments, you can use uncertainty quantification to optimally collect more data. So you use the model and its inherent uncertainties to ask, what's the next sample I should take to improve my simulation or to improve my model? And so now I'm going to just dive into an example of how we can stitch these things together. One project that we worked on was called Twin City, and this was about building a digital energy twin of a city. So there we wanted to include, build a large planning device that you could use to optimize and use for decision support. What I'm going to talk about here is a solar PV layer. So how can we estimate the amount of solar that we could capture in a region? So we're not talking about house by house. We want to do this at scale. So here's an example of how we can use AI with uncertainty quantification to make these decisions. Step one, we want to find rooftops. So we use a big computer vision model to find these rooftops. Uncertainties that arise are, have we segmented the right rooftop? Have we classified it correctly? Have we classified the top of a lorry? And that's built into the model. Step two is kind of the exciting part, but this is where we can include expert information. So we build a Bayesian statistical model, which we include the fact that we know that rooftops are typically flat. So we're going to have a small number of flat facades, and we fit that to the rooftop. This gives us the perspective that we can then plug into a physics-based model to understand the amount of irradiance landing on those rooftops. And we build a surrogate model for this so that we quantify uncertainty and make this a cheap process. And finally, what what are we doing this all for? We want to optimize. We want to ask questions such as, given this budget, how many panels can I place and where can I place them? And for this, we use genetic algorithms. But importantly, as at each stage, we have a probabilistic model, we build that into the objective, and it's the sort of the cherry on the cake that we can now optimize under uncertainty. You can even choose your risk profile. Do I want to make more bolder gambles given a wider uncertainty of the model, or do I want to be very, very sure? And that's very important when you work with safety critical sectors, also important in these kind of forecasting scenarios. So that's an example. Now I just want to move on to a sort of general framework. If you're going to go about building digital twins using AI, machine learning, and uncertainty quantification, what do you need? What do you need to have in your toolkit? So this is how we think about using uncertainty quantification with AI. Number one, we have a surgical precision probabilistic machine learning toolkit. This includes Bayesian models for the reason that they are very efficient with data, and you can build in expert knowledge. So we shouldn't lose sight of that, by the way, because this is robust mathematical techniques which we want to apply to our digital twins. We then want to take advantage of modern technology, modern AI technology, so foundational models. As foundational models are released, you can draw inference in few-shot cases. So you only need very few data points to be able to make new predictions. However, that still comes with a great deal of uncertainty. You've moved from a prior assumption, what the foundational model can do, to a posterior in your example. Finally, so these are the tools. We build these tools, a Bayesian toolkit, as well as a UQ-assured foundational AI toolkit. But how do we use it? So in a sort of basic instance, we build workflows, and we sort of include our expert knowledge into these workflows for our customers. But what we're working on in R&D is to work out how AI itself can process and reason with the uncertainties that we build in. If you imagine these workflows, which contain modeling techniques and uncertainty quantification each step, are essentially a graph or a grammar. Well, modern day AI is very good at understanding and forecasting with grammar. So what we're doing is training models on the grammar of being able to process AI workflows so that the interface is something that can be human and natural language to be able to assemble these things. You don't need the expert in the room, and you can use them through AI. And that's relevant for digital twins in general. If you think about a digital twin, there's an ontology, so a graph of relationships and concepts in your twin, which an AI can start to learn and process in specific environments through simulating data. So there's I think a really important part about building such a graph or an AI tool is that you don't lose the human contact. So when we work on these models, it's very human because we think about the problems and we construct methods to quantify uncertainty in an auditable way. And this is what we want to see the AI do too. And indeed at DigiLab, we are a bunch of humans. We've got sort of disproportionate a number of PhDs in the company, lots with math degrees, which makes for very fruitful and fruity conversations around the coffee machine. As you can probably see, I do always wear these shorts, but there we go. Really, our mission is to build in this expert knowledge into workflows that can be used and eventually into algorithms, which can reason with uncertainty as well. And so I've just got a last slide, not knowing how long 8 minutes was going to be in real life. That was my sort of uncertainty quantification. To remind you of my 3 key take-homes from this. Uncertainty quantification is not a bolt-on. It's something that gives you, it's an investment that gives you a new set of tools. Cheap, efficient surrogate modeling that you can trust through uncertainty quantification. Pick apart those uncertainties. The ability to include expert information into your digital twins as a prior in regions where you have no data. And then the ability to optimally acquire new data. What's the next sample I should take? Where's the next best place I should place a sensor? And that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much.
So first question coming up is to DigiLab. How do you accommodate uncertainty in complex adaptive systems that are non-linear and emergent and are self-organizing? That's from Anonymous.
Okay. Yeah, some nice long words to unpack there. I think one way to distinguish between where you should quantify uncertainty is when I mentioned we've got this toolkit. Part of it is that I sort of called it a surgical precision toolkit. The idea is that adjectives describe very complex nonlinear systems, very hard to simulate. The point is, if you have a simulator, a very expensive one, very hard to collect data from, then you can just choose a single thing that you want to predict. It might be a response curve that lets you fit a new model, or it might be a diagnostic to say how much you can trust your digital twin. But choosing the quantity of interest, quantifying uncertainty there, is the thing to do, because then you can audit this back through the system.
DigiLab. Can you explain more about your ontology and how this is applied to assurance use cases?
Assurance, yeah, great. That's great, actually, because this is giving me lots of thoughts that I wanted to dwell on. And yeah, so graph rag, brilliant. So there we're talking about assembling a graph. That sounds like it's complex, really complex problem to have natural language processing and then derive from that, so learn from that and have a model learn the ontology with no guidance. So having a prior ontology is absolutely critical. I'm going to wander off here and poke me, remind me of the question. So assurance, and so an example that we've also been looking at is in security. So if you have an AI application where the entry point then is through a language model, which is going to be much more common. I was just explaining to you how we also want to do the same in our business. Then you need assurance that that isn't going to expose information about what you have behind your company's wall. So the way there with GraphRag is that you've boiled down a very complex, long text form of data into something which is graphical, but you can model not only between the nodes, you can probabilistically model the relationships between nodes. And then when you have a nefarious action occurring, you can understand with confidence how likely you are that has not done the thing it was supposed to do. So how far are you away from the expected distribution? But GraphRag, so there I think the concept I'm pulling out is there's a very rich latent space, so a vector of numbers behind all of these natural language tasks, which are just far too complex and unexplainable. Something like an ontology or GraphRag boils the dimensionality of that down and makes it tangible, makes it auditable, and you can start learning about it in a probabilistic way. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking.
Thank you. Right, question to everybody here. How do we bring people along when we're talking about digitalization? Lots of vocabulary and concept is inaccessible, or people just aren't interested. But for example, in energy, it's essential to make stakeholders, including the public, the consumers, comfortable. So what's the best way?
Absolutely. So we definitely don't want to be talking about ontologies. That's a big misnomer. And this is our best as a business as well, is that a real leverage is going to be through AI, and you've experienced it. The communication ability from AI, and this is why we're building around. Making ontologies there gives assurance, but communicating with them is with AI. And it's not just AI. I'm going to park that one, but also remind it's all about human interaction. And also the question there, how can we sort of bring people along the digital journey with us? I think, well, I don't maybe speak for myself, but I think a lot of that's on us, because we've got technology and we want to bring it into the wild. And so it's certainly at the top of our minds. We're doing things like building products which are really clear and easy to use and for everyone. But yeah, like I said, I'm very excited about the advances in AI and what you can imagine them being in 2 years' time to make that communication and understanding much easier. Thank you.